and the empire he so proudly proclaimed as his own was about to begin its systematic, public unraveling. The cavernous hall buzzed with an electric anticipation, a symphony of flashing cameras and hushed murmurs. On the colossal screen behind him, Thorne Kaelen, radiating his usual performative charisma, beamed as the Zenith platform, Apex Innovation's supposed crowning achievement, flickered to life. He spoke of innovation, a vision, of a future he claimed he alone had sculpted. My name, Silas Alaric, was never uttered. His words, a meticulously crafted lie, celebrated his unparalleled creativity as the driving force behind this empire. A faint, almost imperceptible tremor ran through the room as the first wave of data began to stream across the screens, seemingly confirming the immense success of the global launch. Thorne raised his arms in triumph, soaking in the adulation, his eyes briefly sweeping over my quiet figure seated in the back row, a flicker of smug satisfaction in their depth. He expected me to be crushed, to be defeated. What he saw was a man utterly at peace, a gentle, almost meditative calm settling over me. The public humiliation, the dismissal less than 2 months prior, citing my debilitating lack of creative contribution after I had literally built everything, felt like a distant echo. I simply observed, a faint, knowing smile playing on my lips. Because I knew, with absolute certainty, that the true show was just beginning. This was Thorne's moment, yes, but it was merely the prelude to mine. The system was now fully engaged. The clock was ticking, and the empire he so proudly proclaimed as his own was about to begin its systematic, public unraveling. To truly understand what unfolded that day, one must first understand the years that led up to it. My journey with Apex Innovations began not with grand promises, but with a quiet conviction in the power of elegant code and robust architecture. I was 24, fresh out of a deeply theoretical computer science program, when Thorne Kaelen, then a fledgling entrepreneur with an abundance of ambition and a startling deficit of technical understanding, sought me out. He had a concept, a vague outline of a market need, but no idea how to build it. I, Silas Alaric, was the quiet engine he desperately needed. For 8 years, I poured my life force into Apex Innovations. I was the architect of every core system, the engineer behind every groundbreaking product. The secure data frameworks, the intelligent algorithms that powered their financial analytics, the revolutionary AI that drove their early predictive models, all of it sprung from my mind, meticulously coded by my hands, debugged through sleepless nights. While Thorne was out charming investors, spinning grand narratives, and accepting accolades, I was in the trenches, transforming abstract ideas into tangible reality. I was the silent, indispensable foundation upon which his public persona of a visionary CEO was built. The relationship was always transactional, never truly collaborative. Thorne took the credit. I took the satisfaction of seeing my creations thrive. For years, this unspoken agreement sufficed. My introverted nature preferred the solitude of code to the spotlight of public recognition. But as Apex Innovations grew, propelled by the very innovations I crafted, Thorne's ego swelled to grotesque proportions. He began to genuinely believe his own hype. He started referring to my systems as his brainchild, my algorithms as intuitive leaps of his genius. The quiet appreciation I once felt for my work began to curdle into resentment. The turning point arrived gradually. It wasn't a single explosive event, but a series of subtle slights, whispers behind closed doors, and eventually, public dismissals of my contributions as merely technical execution rather than creative ideation. Thorne, fundamentally insecure despite his outward bravado, feared that my quiet competence might someday expose his intellectual vacuum. He feared I might demand the recognition I deserved. The idea of being eclipsed by an introverted coder who built his world was anathema to him. It was during this period of increasing marginalization, when Thorne began actively excluding me from high-level meetings and assigning my projects to less capable but more compliant junior staff, that the seed of the Trojan horse was planted, not out of malice or impulse, but out of a calm, methodical assessment of vulnerabilities, both in Apex Innovation systems and in Thorne's character. I saw the inevitable. He would discard me, and when he did, I needed to ensure that my silent contributions would not be erased, but rather undeniably revealed. The Trojan horse wasn't a virus in the destructive sense, but a meticulously crafted, self-actuating audit system, disguised as a routine system optimization and internal documentation project. It was designed to systematically cross-reference intellectual property rights, code ownership manifests, patent applications, and original design schematics against the company's public-facing claims and Thorne's personal financial statements. It was built with surgical precision to activate not immediately, but during a critical, highly publicized event, a global launch, perhaps, or a major investor summit. The trigger was simple: my termination, followed by a specific public statement of my lack of creativity. When Thorne delivered that humiliating dismissal nearly 3 months ago, standing before a room of bewildered colleagues and stating, "Silas, while competent, lacks the creative spark Apex Innovations now demands," the final activation sequence was quietly initiated. The project I had submitted just hours before, ostensibly a final system integrity check, was in fact the Trojan horse, nestled deep within the very core of Thorne's most prized new platform, the Zenith. The weeks following my dismissal were a strange blend of liberation and quiet anticipation. Thorne, predictably, reveled in my absence. He restructured my departments, moving his more malleable sycophants into positions they were ill-equipped to handle, all while loudly proclaiming a new era of unleashed creativity at Apex Innovations. He assumed my silence was a sign of defeat, of a quiet, broken spirit. He was wrong. My silence was the calm before the storm, the deep breath before the plunge. I spent my days observing, from a comfortable distance, the frantic preparations for the Zenith platform's global launch. I saw the press releases, the interviews where Thorne grandiosely spoke of his visionary architecture and breakthrough innovations, all of which were, of course, derived from the very frameworks I had meticulously crafted. He was so consumed by the grandeur of his own deception, so confident in his untouchable position, that he saw no need for genuine technical oversight. My Trojan horse, cleverly disguised as a routine system optimization protocol, had been integrated into the Zenith platform's core during the final audit cycle, a task I had personally overseen just days before my termination. Its presence was virtually undetectable by standard scans, as it operated within established system permissions and only analyzed data, never altering it. The activation trigger, as I mentioned, was Thorne's public statement of my lack of creative contribution, followed by a specific timestamp indicating my official termination. Once those conditions were met, the program began a silent, slow crawl through Apex Innovations' digital archives. It didn't disrupt operations. It merely compiled, cross-referenced, and prepared. It was designed for maximum impact, to reveal not just a single instance of plagiarism, but a systemic pattern of intellectual theft. Every line of original code, every patented algorithm, every foundational design document that Thorne had claimed as his own would be meticulously attributed to its true source, me. The information was queued, ready to be pushed to specific, publicly accessible data streams, timed precisely for the global launch event. Thorne's arrogance blinded him. He dismissed my final system integrity report as a bureaucratic formality, another example of my supposed lack of big-picture thinking. He was so eager to erase my name, he didn't realize I had already carved it into the very bedrock of his downfall. The hum of the assembled media at the Zenith global launch event was almost deafening. Thorne Kaelen, bathed in the glow of 1,000 camera flashes, was in his element, holding court on stage. The Zenith platform, a shimmering digital marvel on the colossal screen behind him, was performing flawlessly, or so it seemed. Today, Thorne boomed, his voice resonating with cultivated sincerity. We unveil a future forged by pure, unadulterated innovation. A future I, personally, have envisioned and brought to fruition. He gestured grandly at the screen, where the platform's user interface, a design I had painstakingly refined, displayed its sleek elegance. Then it began, not with a crash, but with a subtle, methodical flicker. A small, almost imperceptible module appeared in the corner of the main display, labeled Apex Innovations, Foundational IP Audit, Livestream. The audience, initially confused, began to murmur. Thorne, a slight frown creasing his brow, waved nervously at a technician, assuming a minor glitch. But the module didn't disappear. Instead, it began to populate. First, a single line of code appeared, overlaid onto the Zenith interface. It was a core command string, fundamental to the platform's secure transaction protocols. Below it, in stark, undeniable clarity, were two timestamps: original creation date, date 8 years ago, and authored by Silas Alaric. Then, another line, detailing the architecture of the neural network that powered Zenith's core AI. Again, my name, my creation date. The module began to expand, presenting side-by-side comparisons of patent applications, Thorne's name listed as the sole inventor, juxtaposed with internal company documents, dated years prior, explicitly detailing my development and implementation of the exact same technology. The murmurs grew louder, transforming into an undeniable buzz of disbelief. Thorne's face, a moment ago radiating confidence, began to drain of color. He started shouting at the technicians, demanding the screen be cut, but the audit was running on a distributed, self-sustaining loop, embedded too deeply within the system's core. It wasn't just displaying. It was streaming live to every media partner, every investor terminal, every public access point connected to the launch event. Graphs appeared, showing the direct correlation between Apex Innovations' most profitable products and the intellectual property directly developed by me, with Thorne's name conspicuously absent from the development logs, only appearing on the final public-facing patents. Emails were displayed, internal memos where Thorne dismissed my ideas, only to later rebrand them as his own. The systematic dismantling of his meticulously crafted image was unfolding, line by line of code, document by document, testimonial by testimonial, for the entire world to see. Thorne, his eyes fixed on the screen, looked utterly betrayed, as if gravity itself had suddenly ceased to function. His empire wasn't just crumbling, it was being meticulously deconstructed before millions, by the very foundation he had discarded. The cameras, now sensing the true story, swiveled away from the Zenith display and zoomed in on Thorne's terrified, ashen face. My truth, my contribution, my years of silent brilliance, was finally, irrevocably, and spectacularly revealed. The aftermath was immediate and brutal. As the foundational IP audit module continued its relentless, undeniable scroll of evidence, Thorne Kaelen's carefully constructed world imploded. His initial panic gave way to a desperate, flailing rage. He screamed at the technicians, then at the security personnel, demanding that the malware be shut down. But the Trojan horse, designed with my intimate knowledge of Apex Innovations' architecture, was not malware. It was an integral, albeit hidden, part of the system, and it was operating precisely as intended. It couldn't be stopped without a complete shutdown of the Zenith platform itself, which would be an admission of catastrophic failure in front of the world. The live stream of evidence continued for another agonizing 5 minutes before Thorne, his face a mask of sweat and desperate fury, finally lunged at a console, ripping out cables. The screen went black, but the damage was done. The initial shock in the hall gave way to a cacophony of questions. Reporters surged forward, their microphones thrust towards Thorne. Investors, their faces etched with a mixture of disbelief and growing anger, began making furious phone calls. The murmurs about creative contribution had morphed into shouts about fraud and intellectual theft. Thorne was immediately swarmed, not by adoring fans, but by a hostile media and bewildered board members. His carefully cultivated image of the visionary CEO shattered into a million pieces. The smooth, charming facade cracked, revealing the hollow, insecure man beneath. I watched, calmly, as security eventually escorted him away, his public humiliation complete. The initial reports hitting the newswires were scathing. Apex Innovation CEO exposed in massive IP theft scandal. Zenith platform built on stolen ideas. Thorne Kaelen's empire crumbles. The stock price, within minutes, plummeted, erasing billions from the company's valuation. The board, many of whom had been blinded by Thorne's charm and the company's apparent success, were now scrambling, their expressions a mixture of shock, regret, and the dawning realization of how deeply they had been deceived. Their immediate regret was palpable, particularly for those who had echoed Thorne's dismissal of me. In the ensuing days, the fallout continued. Legal proceedings were initiated almost immediately, not just against Thorne, but also investigations into the company's governance and intellectual property claims. Thorne Kaelen, once the darling of the tech world, became a pariah. His lavish lifestyle, fueled by stolen credit, quickly unraveled. Apex Innovations, the empire I had built, found itself in crisis, its reputation in tatters, its future uncertain. As for me, the quiet architect, my phone, once silent, now buzzed incessantly with calls from investors, rival companies, and even Apex Innovations' desperate board, all seeking my knowledge, my guidance, my solutions. The irony was not lost on me. They had fired the very foundation of their success, only to realize, too late, that without it, everything would collapse. Life, for me, has a profound way of finding its true equilibrium. In the months that followed that fateful launch, the world witnessed the full extent of Thorne Kaelen's downfall. Legal battles consumed him, exposing not only his intellectual theft, but a pattern of manipulative business practices. Apex Innovations, the company I had painstakingly built, was forced into a massive restructuring. Many of the board members who had enabled Thorne's charade were ousted, and a new leadership emerged, one that quickly and publicly acknowledged my foundational contributions. They made repeated attempts to woo me back, offering unheard-of salaries and unprecedented control, but I declined. My work there was done. My truth had been revealed, not for vengeance, but for justice and clarity. Today, my life is immeasurably more fulfilling. The quiet intensity that once fueled my coding now drives my independent ventures. I consult for ethical startups, focusing on innovative projects where genuine creativity and intellectual integrity are paramount. I build systems, not empires, and I build them for people who understand and respect the true value of original thought. The satisfaction of creating something meaningful, unburdened by the ego and deceit of others, is a reward far richer than any corporate title or public acclaim. Thorne Kaelen, I hear, is a cautionary tale, a ghost of his former self, consumed by debt and disgraced by his own hubris. His silence now is a stark contrast to his past bombast. And Apex Innovations? It still exists, a shadow of its former self, slowly rebuilding, but under a new name and a very different ethos. They learned, the hard way, that true innovation cannot be stolen, only cultivated with integrity. My story serves as a reminder. The brightest lights may not always be the loudest. True innovation, genuine value, and profound impact often emerge from the quiet diligence of those who prefer creation over self-promotion. Do not fear being overlooked or underestimated. Let your work speak for itself. For in a world obsessed with public image, the quiet architects, the silent builders, often possess the most potent, most enduring power. Sometimes, the most devastating truth is delivered not with a shout, but with the elegant precision of a well-placed line of code. And when it comes, it shatters the world of those who dare to steal your light.